I love printing. I love printing. I love it. I love printing.
There's definitely, I think, a very difficult challenge to look at one's own business uh, from the inside and be able to say, you know what, yeah, if we borrow this money and use it this way, yeah, now we'll be over the top and everything will be okay. That's hard to do. And the reason is that often the deterioration in a business, it tends to accelerate. It's almost like, negative karma. A salesperson leaves, then you lose a customer, and then all of a sudden there's another problem with a receivable. And, these sort of things have a snowball effect. And the metaphor, I hate to use it, but it's like, you look at bath water going down the drain. It looks like it's accelerating at the end.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Why, when that's happening, do we all watch it? It's like a game when you watch the whirlpool at the end go down.
It is, and I don't mean to be critical of anyone because, like I say, I'm not the one actually doing that.
No, I'm talking about in the bathwater. Actually, I still watch it go down. It's like it's this human nature to watch it. So I guess if we're in North America, figure we are in Australia where it's going the other way. Come out of it. Don't go down.
Right. Good point. Good point. You're right. It looks different in the other part of the world. That's true. And then also putting in money. How many times do I hear this? I hear, well, I do have some more money I could put in, but I really don't want to.
Look. I did it.
Yes.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
And what is your thought, Warren? What
you do not put
your experience?
Well, I have another case after where I did put money in, and in the end I lost it all. And that was basically me thinking we could do no wrong. This is my life, right? And at the end of the day, I think if you talk to all the people, all the entrepreneurs and whatever their business is that threw money in and they didn't listen to somebody, the higher percentage is you shouldn't have because they lost it. Right?
I'm going to, yes. I recognize that is definitely the majority of situations.
I'm saying majority. So you have to have the right people guiding you, and they're helping you make the decision on if you put in or not. Right. My point is you do not make that decision on your own because then you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
Because it's an emotional decision. It's not a practical one.
I agree with that. Yeah. And it's often under the backdrop of mergers and acquisitions. It comes up in the following way, because when the company is hurting and the owner is looking at the issues thinking, is it fixable? There's also the thought that, well, maybe we should sell the business and get what we can and make a sale out of the situation. But the problem then becomes, well, the sale is going to take time. So do we have enough staying power? And what if I put in some money and it'll make it easier for us during the sale process? You're shaking your head. No.
I'll tell you why you don't do that. Because you don't know what the bank is going to decide on any given day when they're looking at your deposits and your receivables. And if they decide that you're going into the risk account and they're monitoring you, you will never get that money out again. Because once you're monitored, they have to authorize every check that gets written, right?
Yes. It's a little different U.S. to Canada, but same.
In general, though. And when you want to make a sale, right, you could tell me more than anyone, it never goes as quick as you need it to go when it's going. Unless it's a fire sale in the buyer's advantage, right?
Well, as a practitioner of this, I kind of don't view it as a fire sale, though.
No, I'm saying it's a fire sale when you want the money. Because even when you when you want to buy something, right? The seller never wins when they desperately want to get rid of something.
Understood. But there is a difference here, and that is, you're making a good point. The time frame on the sale process, because you have to go fast, it's never quite the same as it's never the same good outcome as if you could go at a more traditional.
And it gets expensive to do with professionals.
It does. We call it lightning quick, a lightning quick M&A process. And the
On the
decision,
selling side, as an entrepreneur, we call it you're fucked.
it's in that ballpark of stuff. Will the bank go along with it? They usually do because they see it as a way out. But they don't care about the price as long as it's 1 cent more than the bank debt. So there's always going to be that tension between the bank pushing for the sale yesterday, and they don't care about the details of the transaction. Things like employment contracts, real estate leases, assumption or payment of other personal liabilities. They don't care about any of that. So you have to deal with the bank pushing it. But there is also, I think, the mindset that says that if we can go fast, we do stop the bleeding. We get to the other side of the tunnel, and we'll have a better chance to come out from under when we're not having to continue to keep putting money in, and we don't have the risk of not paying our payroll and all the negative ramifications. So, but it's a dicey period. I will certainly agree with you on that. And it's not hard. You better have good help.
That's really the best way to put it. Dicey period, because when you're living in those situations, regardless of what your options are, everything's a fog. Everything's a haze.
Right.
Nothing seems good. In general day-to-day life, I make some decisions I feel really good about. I could tell you in that period from the 6 month from when we felt what was starting to when we actually had to sign the paper, there was no good decision made. There was nothing I felt good about. I mean, I put on a face for everybody else because, as the leader, you don't want people to read, where your head's at, because then everybody else starts to do different things, go in different directions, and have their own worries, right?
Yes,
but
right.
It's really brutal. So, at what point do you say to an owner, wake the fuck up and read what's happening in front of you? Stop pretending it's not happening. Do you grab them by the shoulders and shake them? Because for people that are listening that are in some type of trouble, I want them to say, shit, I'm feeling tight. I need to talk to someone. I want this to be almost like therapy.
It is. My clients will tell you that. They'll say it's very much like therapy. There's a definite comparison to that. But it starts with the individual on the inside. Not everyone can do what you just said. By the time it gets to me, it really, somebody's had to have courage to pick up the phone. And like a doctor, you have to be empathetic. You have to listen. You have to understand it. And I use prior cases without names, but as illustration of, you're not alone. Other people have been through this. And you do your best to be reassuring. And
one thing for everybody listening, the one thing I kept hearing from people is there is no entrepreneur that hasn't hit a bad time.
That's true,
right? There is no business that can only go up, 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 and up. So you got to be prepared in your mind that when you have a bump, you didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
It's normal.
It is normal. And especially when you have external factors, like you mentioned the collapse of Lehman Brothers in 2008 or COVID. I mean, these are external forces that are way bigger than any one of us. And if those are the things that have caused the problems, try not to beat yourself up too bad. It's just the way it is right now. The PPP money in the U.S. helped a huge amount. It's unbelievable. I think that was, we could argue the politics of it all day, but did companies survive in part because of it? Absolutely. You could argue that maybe it delayed the inevitable for some of those companies. Could be. But it really did make a difference,
Oh, listen, in Canada, there was plenty of government money too. If businesses didn't have it in all sectors, the carnage would have been a lot bigger than it was. Listen, I think you have some print companies that got the money and did really good things with it. And a lot of people didn't lay off people and made sure everyone was covered. And then you got a whole bunch of other companies that did whatever they did and took advantage of the situation, right?
Yes.
But that doesn't change today with people needing people, people having to do things, people having to spend money to stay in business.
Right.
We're back on the track now of trying to continue on the journey, but do things right. And my concern for a lot of people is inflation. One, cost of our own expenses of living. When people are stressed, how they act at work and what they do has another factor in there. Because if your mind's not on your work and it's on your mortgage because you can't pay it, you're a little messed up. And then on the business side, even, I mean, the talk of recession is scary. Talk of inflation is big. All of our pricing in the print industry is through the roof. Maybe some things are slowly coming down, supplies a little better, but like even when you go to the grocery store now, they're not going to put more chips in the bag ever.
No.
Once that bag is shrunk or there's more air in it, that's not changing. Right. But for print companies now is like they're going forward. We don't know what's happening. Do you buy equipment now? Or do you just bite your tongue and hold out for 12 or 18 months if you can and see where it goes? Because if you buy equipment now and interest is at 8, 9, 10% on the equipment, you're paying for 6, 7, 8 years.
I'll take maybe a moment to argue a contrary position. In recessionary times, companies grow by taking market share from those who can't keep up and who can't stay in business.
Correct.
So there is a body of thought as to saying that the best time to expand in capital equipment is during bad times, not necessarily in
but you're a company in pretty much good standing to take advantage of the situation.
Oh, exactly. Yes, I'm talking that would be a healthy decision, right?
Those are givens, and I'm not even talking about the smart, well companies. And my only thing today is really if you're not in a great position,
then don't.
That you're smart about what you're doing. You might have to bite the bullet for a little while and hang tough. But if you make that bad decision now, thinking you're buying an automated piece of equipment where you're paying more, the interest is more, you never catch up.
No, and also you've depleted whatever cushion you may have had financially, and also you're introducing other aspects of risk, how long it's going to take to get things running, the inevitable delays, the real estate implications. Well, we got to get more electricity. We have to do this and that. I mean, there's all these unknowns that turn into the proverbial nightmare. So, except for companies that are very strong, no, my advice would be to kind of hold back on things involving capital expenditure.
I think expenditure. I think you got to look at your labor count. There's ways to do some good. And I think, I'll tell you this, when I got into trouble in 2008 or 9 or whenever that whole catch up was, when I went and had every employee in the boardroom or the cafeteria to tell them about where we were at, after I told them all, and not everybody understands everything I said just because it's normal, I went around to every employee one-on-one and spent 4 hours talking to everyone to make sure that every single person understood the situation, that we weren't dead, that times are tough. All businesses are having a tough time, but I wanted to be open and honest. And through that process of filing for protection, going to get the money, getting the 85% approval rating from our creditors, I didn't lose one employee.
Wow, that's amazing, Warren. That's incredible.
Right.
One of the major risks of filing for protection or bankruptcy is that the good employees, not necessarily the bad ones, the good ones, well, they get their resume together, they're out the door. It's hard to keep good employees. That's one of the reasons why it doesn't work. I will say this, hearing things you've said, your communication skills, your leadership skills, I'll give you a big thumbs up. Not looking to blow smoke up.
Oh, please do. I don't mind it.
But I will say what you described of having one-on-one meetings with the employees after having a longer group meeting, calling the customers the way you did, talking to the suppliers. Those are hallmarks of survival in tough times. And some people embrace that, others not so much. I remember one case years ago. The person just didn't have the feel for how to do that, so they called everyone into the. Actually, they shut down the press room. They shut down the press room. They called everyone in, and the owner of the company sat in a chair in the middle of it all, and everyone else was standing. It was like awkward dynamics. It was weird. I mean, somebody who just they weren't comfortable.
Well, yeah, I've always made it a point, and I think all leaders, oh, not leaders, because not everyone is a leader, wants to be whatever, but I think all ownership needs to be forthright, honest with the employees about everything. And at that time, when that happened, one of the other things we did is, in order to stay together, I had to cut wages. Right. And in
Wow.
cutting wages, I mean, I did a lot of things that I've never, ever did or expected at the time. But even in cutting wages, I got in the cafeteria again. I told everyone, if you're earning under X amount, there's no cut because you're already so low. If you're between here and here, it's 10. Management, meaning me and one or two others, whatever, was a 25 or 30% a cut. And the last thing I said to everybody is, listen, we all got here together. I want us all to be here together. If there's anybody in this room that doesn't agree with the pay cuts and would like to keep their full salaries, that's okay. You come stand where I am, and then you decide who goes home.
Excellent.
Right? And no one did it. And my point was, like, I couldn't do it. But anyways, more importantly with this whole session is, just before we cut off, what should people be looking at, or what should they be thinking to do when they're looking and they got that feeling in their stomach?
Well, one thing we didn't talk about is to look at worst case scenarios. And not everyone wants to, because sometimes the attitude is, well, I don't want to manifest negative outcomes by thinking about possible negative outcomes. Okay, if that's how you want to do it. But other people, they do want to know, all right, what's plan B? What's plan C? And this is an area that I think is really ripe for my practice to help people, because unless you've done orderly liquidations of printing companies, you really don't know what that's going to look like, and you don't understand the costs, what's involved.
There's a cost to getting to closing.
There's a cost to go out of business, and
Yeah.
it's enormous in some cases, and it's not on the balance sheet. People go to their the account says, well, they look at the balance sheet. Well, you have assets, you have life. No. First of all, your customer relationships have value. That's not on the balance sheet. And there's liabilities that aren't on your balance sheet. When you're going to be winding down, there's working capital that's needed just to do that, unless you're taking the path of an FU exit. We know what that is. And I don't see too many people in our industry that are looking to take a
Right.
harsh, hostile view. It's more of a desire to have a graceful transition. And that means you have to really study it and analyze how to go about it. Here's something for your listeners. There's 117 tasks that relate to a textbook winding down of a printing company. Now, there might be more, there might be less, depending on the case. But I've actually kept this list over a long period of time. And when something changes and I'm like, I didn't have that on the list, I added to the list. It's the current version, 117 tasks.
Wow.
And who would even think about some of this stuff?
You don't just turn the key and walk away.
No. And people who do that, they have to live with that outcome.
But even then, you're not doing that, because there's taxes, there's government money, there's employee shit, there's payroll. It's never clean. It takes a couple of years to close down properly.
Yes. And Warren, there's an enormous misunderstanding that people think, well, unless I've signed my name on a personal guarantee, I'm not responsible. I mean, that is a tremendous, I don't want to say it's a lie, but it's a misplaced understanding of how things really work. You don't have to necessarily sign a contractual guarantee to have personal exposure on liabilities if you're an owner of the business. There's liabilities that you don't necessarily sign up and put your signature on. But that's misunderstood. And so all I'm saying is, if you want to really look at your options, the first option, fix it. You got to really put serious thought into, do we have the time? Do we have the money? How are we going to do this? Is it real? Is it actionable? And some folks don't want to think plan B, but the ones that do want to explore plan B or plan C, it takes a lot to really, understand
Oh,
that.
we'll have another conversation again about the plan B and C, because I've been there too, right before I actually lost my company 12 years later. Again,
Wow.
we'll talk later, but some my doing, most of it not my doing, and then things just happening really fast. For everybody listening today, and I hope you listened, and I hope you took the conversation in an open mind. All I really wanted to do was to let you know, if it isn't good, that there are options, that there are things to think about, but you absolutely have to think of things. You just can't let them slide. When things are not good, it just doesn't go away and disappear. It only goes away and disappears when you finish dealing with all this shit. But you have to, right? That's the common thing is you have to deal with it. So my suggestion is that you deal with it in the beginning head on and try to make the best of it, so that you don't have to go to the plan B or plan C. Wow, I can go on and on and on, because this, this one really hit home when I went through it. And in my 18 years prior, I was only in a position where every year the company was slowly going upward,
Yes.
and I never experienced the downward. And I'm just happy that I always treated people with respect along the way. And then, now that I've been through those experiences, and I could smile, I was not smiling back then. If I could help anybody alleviate any little bit of pressure or take something off the brain, I'm happy to do that.
With hindsight, are you happy that you made the transition and you moved on?
Am I happy? I won't know. I'm not happy. Okay, that's a bit of a loaded question. So I'm not happy that fast forward to losing the company. I'm not happy that I lost my company. I've accepted it. I've learned to accept it after. I've learned to take on new thought processes and, challenge myself in different ways, because you can want to hang yourself, because you can put yourself in depression. To have a business of 27 years and lose it, morally, mentally, it's devastating.
Yes.
I kid you not, I had a life coach for a couple of years I still work with, because I couldn't get through the hoops of everything that's going on at once.
Yes.
Right? Am I good today? Yeah, I'm in a good place. I'm able to reflect on what I did. My kids are great. The family's great. I've done a lot of the right things to do. I've done some bad and learned how to correct it. So for where I am in life, yeah, I'm good. I'm happy. I'm okay. Would I have liked things to work out differently? Absolutely. Do I miss walking on the, on the plank of a 56-inch UV press every morning? Biggest loss of my life, what I missed the most. But yeah, I'm okay. But I'll be better if I know that I could help a couple people.
Yes.
Right? Because, entrepreneurship, it's about helping and sharing.
Absolutely. That's a big
So
part
if
of
I
it.
could do that.
Sure.
So,
Yes.
Any final words from you before I cut you?
Well, I think I asked that question about how you are on purpose, because I tend to find that I get calls from people who are, I don't get the call that says, I wish I was still doing it. I regret that I'm not owning the company. I don't get those calls. I get the calls that say, I'm really glad that I made the transition. Yeah, it was hard, incredibly hard, but I'm really happy I did it. And, I kind of wish I did it sooner. I get that phone call more than regrets and remorse. So I was interested to see your perspective on it.
Yeah, it's you got to embrace life every day and make the best of what it is every day. That's what I've learned, because we're only here for a short time, and if we spend our time harping on the stuff that we can't do anything about because it's past, it doesn't give us anything fulfilling going forward.
Yes.
Right. To everybody else who's listening, and I sure hope you made it. Do let me know if there's anything else you want me to talk about. Doesn't have to be printer to printer. Could be anything to do with a printer's life, an ownership life. Reach out to me. We could have one-on-one conversations. It's just about me sharing, and spreading the word. We'll do more of these. John, thank you so much for the participating in the conversation. It's not always a conversation that people want to listen to, but I think it's one that they have to be aware of, because no one is aware, or no one could prepare for what comes, whether it's their fault or not their fault.
Yes.
Right.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, Warren. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. Everybody else, just tune in, keep listening, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please, please. Warren Werbitt, what they think. I love print.